Hello, my name is Exabo, and this is Unity of Command 2 Barbarossa DLC Ukraine mission on hard. 3, 2, 1. Right, prepare for a long ride, because this is going to be long. This is going to be 42 minutes and 36 seconds of the Battle of Ukraine, or effectively, like, Western Ukraine. And this mission, actually, I don't find it to be too difficult. But as you can see, as you may guess from the duration of the replay of this mission, right? So it's pretty long, and I think that's the main reason that you'll see some less than high quality gameplay by me, because the mission is so big. There's so much happening there. And yes, I sustained a bunch of losses that I shouldn't have, and kind of suffered from it, which we will find out later in later missions. Well, the few missions that we have actually left of this DLC. And so at this point, I'm setting everything up. And so the plan is, first of all, if you don't know, or probably you do, Ukraine is a kind of a mix, one of the mixed scenarios, like the scenario that immediately precedes it, which is Heeresgruppe Süd, Army Group South mission, where the Soviets also counterattack. This is like a mission that is very, very similar to that. And so the Soviets will counterattack. They will counterattack in the north, in the area around Zhytomyr and okay, I don't see the map. Come on, and Bardyshev, right? So, and that's what they will try to do, right? And so, even though we kind of reached Kiev, almost have reached Kiev, I found that it's very impossible, pretty much impossible to get that objective on turn 1. So you simply don't have the firepower to take that hex in the city. Maybe. I guess had I had an infantry unit there, obviously with an HQ, it may have been possible, right? So with a set-piece attack, maybe. But otherwise, it's impossible. Don't even expect, don't even hope that you could do it, you could pull it off. No. And so, given that the Soviets, and you can see that the Soviets have a bunch of motorized units just south and southeast of Bardyshev, they will, Bardyshev, yeah, Bardyshev, they will counterattack, and essentially, they will also, as you can see, they have a huge group of motorized troops around Korostan. So they obviously will try to kind of snap the sharp tools of these two prongs of attack on your neck, and well, cause you lots of trouble. So the idea, and it's valid both on hard and on classic, and classic is obviously easier, is to not let them do that. So definitely abandon that salient, like leading to Kiev. By the way, like, my Romanian troops are advancing now across a bridge that needs to be built during the placement stage, during the placement phase. I keep forgetting the name of that. Like the turn 0 before everything happens. So make sure you build that bridge. I don't know if it's the difference between classic and hard. By the way, this huge movement of troops here, you really don't need to go to Mogilov-Podolsky. One, it's not your objective. That's one of the actually discoveries I made trying to finish this mission, right? You really needn't try to break through at Mogilov-Podolsky. Balta is much more important. And Mogilov-Podolsky is not your objective. The guys in it are passive. They'll just sit and wait for you to kill them. So just make sure they lose their supply. That's your goal. So go for Balta and repurpose, kind of reorient your troops. And this is what the Soviets do effectively. So they'll attack, and this is a very good idea. It's a very good idea to kind of like move your troops to safer position, to safer hexes, maybe like that marsh, which I haven't done actually, but anyway. Bardyshev is a very good place to kind of set up, like, make a stand, because it's a city, and having a very strong unit, as in my case, it's a motorized division with an AC step, and I'm losing lots of tanks here. The Soviets are reasonably successful. And so, yeah, so they'll do some Tiraspol action. So maybe having some entrenchment for the units there, it might be a good idea. But otherwise, just hold there, just hang in there, and you'll be fine. And as you can see, I think I will change the division on my next turn. So because the guys in Tiraspols are kind of, yeah, barely holding. Barely holding. Yes, they've left the town, but thankfully you don't have to hold it the entire time. So actually, I retook it pretty quickly and didn't incur a penalty in points. So hold it, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Right, so and around Balti, you can see that I'm moving the troops towards Balta, the annoyingly similarly named Balta. And, yeah, so that's pretty much your main pivot of attack, because all of those troops between Vinitsa and Balta, they are fed from the same railway, right? So if you cut both of them, and the northern end of that railway is very easy to cut, so just you take the hex next to Bardyshev, and they're done. And the southern end of that, railway is slightly more difficult. It's further away, but once Balta is yours, it's cut away also. And, well, yeah, these guys are going to lose their supply, and you're just going to mop them up and everything. One thing that I've noticed compared between hard and classic, I don't know, maybe they have patched the AI, and it's working better right now. But the AI is slightly better at responding to Balta. So as you've seen, so they've moved that infantry division there, because as far as I remember, I was able to take Balta on turn 2 or 3 on classic. So yeah, they changed something, I think, or maybe it's the AI being slightly more intelligent on high difficulty level. And so I'm advancing from Proskurov, but I don't think it's that important to lose your troops or like deal as much damage as you can. Because remember, and you will find why it is a problem very soon, find out why it's a problem very soon. Taking the objectives, just taking the objectives in this mission is not that difficult. You can get into trouble getting the 140 steps of enemy prisoners. That can get you into trouble, especially if you try too hard to kill them instead of encircling them and forcing them to fall apart and then picking up all the pieces, right? So maybe that was one of my mistakes. Just spoiling it for you. Really, I made a mistake of really by the end of this mission, I will not have too much trouble actually taking the objectives, right? So I know how to do it. So and one of the actually important elements of succeeding in this mission, in terms of just the objectives, is taking Balta and rushing towards Balta, not going to Mogilov Podolsky, not worrying about that stuff around Tiraspol too much. Just rushing towards Balta, taking that railway and that Prvomaisk and then Kirovograd, etc., etc. So, like, doing that, pushing there, not doing anything else. Obviously, you'll need tanks, and obviously you will need to break through from the north via Uman and once again towards Kirovograd. And so, by the way, so the area between Vinitsa and Balta was already cut off, so these guys are going to run out of supply pretty soon. The problem is, like, taking the objectives, if you know what you're doing, is not that difficult. Getting 140 prisoners is somewhat more annoying. Especially in on hard, because in many cases you're just really discouraged from fighting, from attacking, because, well, the predictions aren't as good as on classic. Even on classic, you can screw over yourself, right? So, or screw yourself over, whatever. So the Soviets, by the way, are continuing counterattacking. Obviously, they still haven't lost their steam, and I'm losing my tanks pretty significantly. And I found that in this northern area, the Soviets are much more aggressive. Well, obviously because of the better combat predictions, because you've seen that they've just crossed that river. And I've never seen them do it on Classic. Never, ever, ever. So I pretty much just, well, like here, I did what I did on Classic, right? So I just left an infantry division, just a division that was there, to guard the bridge and not expecting the Soviets to cross the river in any way. So I'm not try to attack anything or anything. And here they're more effective, but generally I'm doing the right thing. I'm not super happy about the performance, and had this mission been a bit shorter than what it is, I probably would have replayed it. But it's huge, and I decided to just wing it and proceed with the campaign, which actually is slightly suffered from on Dnieper crossings, where my tank divisions weren't entirely up to snuff. And so the thing is, so I generally do the right thing between Shepetovka and Bardyshev, but the Soviets, the Soviets are slightly more aggressive on hard, so it's slightly, like, essentially what you need to do, essentially hold that line between Shepetovka and Bardyshev. So the rest, don't worry about Zhytomyr, don't worry about anything. Use the forests, use all of the difficult terrain to, all of the difficult terrain to actually hold against the Soviet onslaught. And, yeah, that's what should be done. Yeah, that's how you deal with it. Don't worry about losing some ground. But I found that Bardyshev is an important area because obviously it opens the way towards Vinnytsia and to the southeast towards Uman. So both of which are important. The first Vinnytsia is obviously for cutting the supply to the guys in the southwest, and Uman obviously to reach those far-reaching objectives. And by the way, okay, guys in the Balta, right? On Classic, by the way, at this point, Balta would have been mine. So the Soviets are slightly more intelligent on hard, or maybe now. Maybe the AI has been patched up and made slightly more intelligent. Anyway, so I'm moving up and doing all this stuff. Generally on Classic, in terms of prisoners, it can sometimes get difficult, and you don't always get it, like, just handed over to you. Right? Yeah, that's what I was like, yeah. I was expecting an English failure, like, when there's no English failure. Bloody hell. Anyway, so, like, hand it over to you, but sometimes you can make mistakes, and on Classic, you've got plenty of enemy to get prisoners from, right? So you've got a bunch of people in Krasny, you've got a bunch of people, which right now we don't see them. Yeah, all right, let's look at them. So, past Kirovograd in that northeastern part of the map, that northeastern edge of the map, the Soviets will get crap loads of reinforcements there, and I will indeed use them to get prisoners, to get up to the prisoner objective, but I think I haven't played very efficiently here, so I had to be pretty much desperate to get any kinds of prisoners out of the enemy, because they were well supplied, and I didn't have the firepower to actually cut their supply off, and had to sustain losses in pointless fighting just to get those prisoners. Right, so it's turn 3 for the Soviets, and yeah, so at this point, to be honest, the battle is won. I've won the battle. So the Soviets have run out, even though they are getting reinforcements, and obviously they are very much in power. The best they can do is just damage me as much as they can, and they will. But otherwise, I'm well on the way to taking the southeastern and southeastern objectives. So as you can see, my brilliant Romanian tank division, which I really like. I already mentioned it in my München mission, in my München mission playthrough, that the Romanian tank division is good. It's not as great as the German tank divisions, obviously, but it's still very mobile. It packs a decent punch. So yeah, it's still a very functional tank division. So definitely don't overlook it. Oh, don't think, okay, so it's Romanian, so they probably have crappy troops or whatever. No, not entirely. So, just like in Crimea, we actually already covered the Crimea mission in the series. So, yeah, obviously, having cavalry, Romanian cavalry, is much better than not having any mobile troops. Okay, a little gift by the AI. I don't know. I think when they publish the next DLC, and I'm sure they will, and like I'm kind of 99% sure that they're gonna retread their 2X2 are gonna retread their steps, retread their steps from the original game. So my guess is gonna be Fall Blau. I suspect, given the changing topic, because you know what's gonna happen. So my guess as to what's gonna be in the next DLC, obviously it's gonna be Fall Blau, i.e. the German Summer Offensive 1942, right? So, but my guess is gonna be, given what they've done so far, because like Barbarossa is essentially the successor to Black Turn DLC from the original game, from the original Unity of Command, I'd say they're probably gonna kick out the Soviets. I suspect, because if you don't remember, so Fall Blau, so German summer and eventually winter offensive, or winter something, 1942. So was the theme of the original game, so the base campaign. So there were 2 campaigns, as far as I remember. It was what was it? I think it was like 30 missions, or 26 or 27 missions. There was like a decent amount. Essentially, kind of what you get in this DLC, or in these DLCs. And certainly the entire campaign, the entire 2 campaigns of the original game are smaller than the base campaign of this game. So they were smaller when this game just came out, because they have updated the campaign. As far as I know, it's longer than the original Victory in the West campaign. So the updated stuff is like incredible. They're actually rehashed everything, and it's just as a patch, effectively. It's very generous. Anyway, so my guess is that they're obviously going to retread their steps with... And here, by the way, case in point, this is my defensive line between Shpetovka and Bardyshev, and I'm not going for Zhytomyr yet. And so, my guess, so they're going to retread their steps in Fall Blau. But my guess is that they're not gonna, given the way this campaign looks, they're probably not gonna include anything Soviet officially. I have a feeling that's probably the Soviet side of the war is going to be somehow separate from, because like, yeah, obviously in the base game, in the base original Unity of Command, you actually had the Soviet campaign and the German campaign, right? So, and actually remember that when I just bought that game. Oh, by the way, this little cut is, once again, there is a glitch. I don't know, there was a glitch in the game, and it's a repeating glitch at the end of turn 4. So, yeah, the game just crashed, just like in Hellsgruppe Süd. Yeah, it's a persistent glitch. I don't know what's happening, but the game crashed, and I had to restart the recording and then, like, put everything together. And so, my guess is... Actually, I remember in the base game, I actually went for the Soviet campaign. I went for the Soviet campaign, and I got my butt kicked because the first mission in this, like, actually that was a big problem. I think I mentioned this in my kind of retrospect of the original game, like 2 years ago when I published it. The retrospect, I actually talked about, like, the fact that in the base campaign in Unity of Command 2. Like, the mission in both of the campaigns, in the Soviets and the Germans, so for the Germans is the first, it's the second Kharkov. First Kharkov is in Barbarossa. So it's the second Kharkov. For the Soviets, it's Uranus. Yeah, let's do the asshole jokes. So it's the Uranus campaign. So, like, and both of these missions are insanely difficult. Like, the first mission of a campaign, and it's incredibly difficult. Actually, okay, so and both, like, in real life, like, none of these battles were kind of super insanely just like very close battles where like crap loads of people died and trying to fight. It's not like, it wasn't Verdun, okay? It wasn't a siege of some sorts. it was pretty decisive on the attacking side, right? So in both cases, so the Germans, so this, like in Kharkov, in the second battle of Kharkov, it's like the Soviets severely overextended themselves, and the Germans managed to exploit the weather and like the lack of preparations by the Soviets, and actually the fact that they were already preparing for an offensive, right? So they're very much in force. And in that, like in the game, you get lots of trouble from weather. You can get terrible rolls for weather and for everything else, and like the mission can turn into a nightmare if you want to get a full score. And in Uranus, well, another asshole joke. And in Uranus, yes, once again, the Germans were incredibly overextended and exhausted in Stalingrad, and the Soviets like just plowed through Uranus. Anyway, and the Soviets just moved through, or like cut through the Romanian lines and everything, and just wasn't too much of a problem, and the Germans just had no chance of ever breaking through, so it was pretty much an abysmal failure for them. And in the game, it's a very difficult scenario because you have very tight, it's like pretty much the worst of the worst of Unity of Command 2, Unity of Command generally designed, so like the worst the things I hate the most in Unity of Command, right? In the whole franchise. Obviously, Unity of Command 2 is getting better. It has actually got better with the new release, obviously, compared to Unity of Command 1. But it has gone better. I actually mention it in my cracking videos on the main channel. The fact that they get rid of bullshit. I love to see that they're improving their ability to produce satisfying scenarios. Because quite often, especially in the original game, you had rather, very tight deadlines, rather bullshitty early deadlines, like turn 1 objectives, turn 2 very far objectives that you need lots and lots of luck to reach, on lots and lots of trial and error to reach, and you just need to be super finicky, do everything to kind of adjust your playstyle to what the AI does. It kind of makes sense, but at some point, at some level, and there should be some of it, obviously predicting the AI, seeing what kinds of mistakes the AI makes, because it does make mistakes. And but at some point it gets frustrating if there's no progress and you need to figure out every tiny little detail. Oh, by the way, speaking of mistakes that the AI just loves to make, I don't know what it does there, but something needs to be done with the way the AI places those supply hubs, because right now the AI has lost 3 or 4 trucks. What was it? We'll see right now. So it was 4 freaking trucks. It loses 4 freaking trucks to supply 2 divisions, completely out of supply divisions that are not particularly valuable and are going to die next turn. Just for that, right? So it's not a very intelligent thing. Generally, I like the AI in this game. It's very well performing. It's very nasty. But yeah, these kinds of mistakes are slightly silly and unbecoming of an AI as strong as this is. Right, so and back to design. So all that kind of stuff, and I see that there's less and less of that especially in Barbarossa. Obviously, there are a couple of instances. I'd say the mission we actually haven't looked at yet, and we will look at it tomorrow. Dnieper Crossings. It was a bit bullshitty. It had very tight deadlines, especially one of them. And sometimes you just need the right die rolls and gets a bit lucky to take everything. But otherwise, pretty much maybe Pskov is a little bit like that. Even though, yes, even in Pskov, it's not too much luck. It's just largely, just knowing what to do. But you get very little bullshit. You get very little, very few things where you don't feel like you're in control, and you feel like, okay, I'm gonna have to replay this and replay this and replay this and replay this until I get lucky and I can continue, or I can do what I need to do. Right, so you don't get a lot of that. Unity of Command 1 had crap loads of that, and I just, like, once again, like, infamously, like, the first missions of both the base campaigns were actually like that. Really annoyingly, it's very unfortunate that game really didn't get, like, wasn't slightly more attractive to the new player, slightly more amenable to the inexperienced. And I'm betting, even with my experience with both of the games, like, I've spent already, like, 400 hours with Unity of Command 2, and, like, a considerable amount of time with Unity of Command 1, probably, like, around 200 hours. Actually, don't remember. But, thing is that even with my experience with this game and with this system, I probably would not be able to be extremely, exceedingly successful, like, right off the bat, even in those missions, in those base missions, because the design is not wonderful in them, all right? The game is brilliant, and obviously they're fun and interesting, but, like, it's still too frustrating to be right. Too frustrating to be good design. And by the way, I think back to this mission, as you can see, obviously in Barbarossa, back to Barbarossa first, I don't see a lot of this, and I see that in most cases it's very much about moving your troops right, doing the right maneuvers. Obviously it's the right things because you want to win, right? So, like, you need to, if you want to win, right, you need to do the right things, right? And so the thing is that it's much more about how you arrange your troops, how you move your troops, about your decisions. It's much more about your decisions. Obviously, there are better choices. Obviously, in many missions, they're like more or less one general layout, but then you have to figure out what works better for you, what to use where. Obviously, all of the HQ abilities, all of the new features, well, relatively already new features from Unity of Command 2, obviously give you additional choices and make it more interesting, and quite often, like, make it very easy for you to handle certain situations. By the way, if you haven't noticed, there is a glitch in Barbarossa whereby it doesn't render the borders, the borders for your terrain, the terrain you're holding. Right, so I don't know what it is, but as you can see, this glitch is persistent, and if you look at my other videos, you'll see that it's all over the place. It's happening. So it hasn't yet been patched because I recorded this footage, even though I played this mission a few weeks ago. I recorded this footage just yesterday, so yeah, it's still there. So they correct it. But back to Ukraine, at this point, this is turn 6-7, so I'm very well on time. I'm very well on time in terms of taking the objectives. So if you don't remember, so Nikolaev and Kryvyi Rog are takeable, should be taken on turn 9. By turn 9, Kirovograd wants to be taken on turn 7, on which I successfully did. And so, and Kiev, it was, I think, turn 10. So there's plenty of time, so Kryvyi Rog and Nikolaev can get a little tricky, but generally, if you're on time in Kirovograd, you should on time and enforce in Kirovograd. It's not just one division that barely scraped to enter the city, and yeah, no. You should have a bunch of troops already just so that they don't have to stop at Kirovograd and can advance further. At Kiev, by the way, the Soviets have grapplers of troops, and I'm kind of scraping by. I don't have too many, and I lost a lot. I lost a lot here. And as you can see, I am kind of not on very firm ground. I will not have too much trouble getting rid of Kiev, but the problem is that around turn 6 and 7, I realized that I haven't advanced very far. It's been like more than half of the mission, right? So, and I realized that I didn't have more than half of the prisoners, right? So, and I realized, oh, maybe I had. Actually, I obviously don't have the count. But I saw that if you look at the map, there aren't many out-of-supply enemies. So I would have to fight or I either find ways to cut their supply off, or actually fight them to kick those prisoners out of those units, which is so much more difficult. But I will have to resort to it, and the Soviets at this point will just keep beefing up their presence and trying to prevent me actually dealing damage to me like this. And this was not very intelligent of me. And destroying my tank divisions, actually. So they'll keep beefing up their presence around Bela Tserkov and Cherkasy, and kind of engaging in not very spirited attempt. This huge army, this huge bunch, very reminiscent actually of Heeresgruppe Süd, when they have this. I suspect this is a peculiarity of the AI. I don't know. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's introduced in the scenario so that, like, to make the AI passive, like the AI of these units more passive, so they just bunch up around Cherkasy and Bela Tserkov and not do anything serious, except for, like, these mild counterattacks. Because they could have just moved towards, towards the southwest, and yeah, screwed me over, I think. Like, the front is completely bare there, and I have nothing to protect it with. And so, but the Soviets just sit and hold and just sit and wait, right? Hold and wait, sit and hold, whatever. The problem is that because your battle predictions are not too great on hard, you can't push into that crowd, right? So in Classic, what I did, and in my Classic playthrough, which I prepared for my cracking video, right? I actually did I also lacked. I was missing a few prisoners by the end of the mission, like near the end of the mission, and I knew that, okay, so I need to move towards Cherkasy and attack those guys and get some prisoners there. I actually also even recommended not pushing towards Korosten. Just be very defensive, and it's still good advice. But be defensive on the line between Shepetovka and Bardyshev. Make sure that railway is yours because it feeds everything, or a lot. And so, not moving past. Be very defensive and don't move past Zhytomyr to the north. Just don't waste your troops. And on Classic, it's very doable, right? So on Classic, you just sit there and don't do anything, and because you know that, okay, so if you've got a bunch of the Soviets are getting a bunch of reinforcements around Cherkasy, you're gonna have a lot of strong troops in there. So if you're worried about prisoners, so you'll just attack Cherkasy. And actually, in my Classic playthrough, I was strong enough to attack Cherkasy, because I think is the source of supply in that area. It's like the road supply, not railway supply. And so, yeah, just cut their supply off and was able to very successfully get craploads of prisoners there as well, more than I ever would have wanted to, or needed to, at least. And so, yeah, so it wasn't a problem. Here, it's not that difficult. On hard, it's not that easy to get it right. So, one of the, actually, and we will see how it goes, so it's turn 8, actually, is it going to be turn 9? Right, no, it's turn 8. Turn 8 for the Soviets. So you'll see that I actually succeed here. I actually succeeded, right? And you'll see, like, me grasping straws and trying to, well, do everything to actually, and the Soviets do these little skirmishes, do everything to get those prisoners. Unfortunately, it was very difficult now, barely won. So one of the, actually, lessons that I learned out of this mission, and if you are struggling with Ukraine or wondering what you should do that I didn't, and I already mentioned it, like the guys in the West, those like cut-off guys, like use them like to the absolute maximum. So try to avoid engaging them in combat unless absolutely necessary. Obviously, like clearing that railway is important, right? So because it feeds everything towards Pervomaisk and Kirovograd and everything, that railway is critical. But otherwise, just let them stew. Let them stew, let them lose their supply, and let them start falling apart, because they'll start producing. Guaranteed, you won't have to fight them. Guaranteed, they're guaranteed to spit those stragglers. So I think I wasn't very efficient about that. Also, I have a feeling that I should have been slightly more defensive around Bardyshev early in the mission, because I sustained a lot of damage. My My tank divisions, my motorized divisions sustained, I think, way too much damage early in the mission, and I will suffer for it in Dnieper crossings, where my tank units will not be as strong as they could have been. But like, this mission is huge. I decided not to replay it as soon as I saw that. Okay, so I've completed it. Especially, actually, given the fact that this is early in the DLC, and I wasn't entirely sure yet that if I would be able to complete it. Yeah, if I knew that, yeah, it's like we're guarantee that you're gonna be able to do Siege of Moscow and everything, Gates of Moscow, and everything, like, quite successfully, and you'll do Odessa and everything. So you're gonna be just fine. I probably would have replayed this mission, but otherwise I wasn't sure. I didn't know. Is it worth it? Is it worth trying to do it perfectly and not losing too many troops? So I decided to screw it and to say screw it and not do redo this mission. So it was a bit difficult. So at this point, as you can see, the only objective that's left is Kiev proper. So, and I'll take it on turn 10, obviously, which is the deadline. And the rest of the objectives are mine, and the Soviets are kind of falling apart. At this point, I'm grabbing all of the Soviet prisoners I can have. It's like there are a bunch of them still, like, roaming about the map. I took everything. I just took everything I could. Like, that level 3 straggler, it's like, just like, oh, so brilliant. Okay, let's see what the Soviets do on turn 9. They'll just do some counterattacking. Actually, that wasn't very intelligent of the guy sitting in Kiev. It just saw, okay, so I'm gonna attack very successfully. It lost all of its sort of fortification and got some... has it got some suppression? I think it got some damage, actually, from the attack, because, like, it's not very intelligent for them. And, yeah, the Soviets are starting to gather prisoners as well. But at this point, yeah, as you can see, so my position, now that you see everything, my position is rather very precarious here. I'm kind of winning, but not really. It's like, if this was real life, I would have been kind of screwed, and really, really praying that the Soviets don't realize that, like, the entire city, like, how critical my situation here is. Obviously, I'm advancing, I'm taking all my objectives, but how sustainable is it? Right, so... pretty much the story of the entire German campaign in that war. And so right now I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything to get those prisoners, because Kiev would be mine. I already saw, as soon as that Soviet infantry tried to attack me, I knew that Kiev would be mine. I had plenty of troops there, and the hexes next to the objective are not well defended, so I have all means to actually take the city hex, take the western bank of the Dnieper River, and, well, that part of Kiev. All right, so I'm gradually moving in. I got a bit lucky with the air attack, and the Soviets retreated, and Kiev is mine. And at this point, I'm just gathering everything I can. Like, right now, all of the movements I do here are geared towards getting some more prisoners, because otherwise it's just impossible. And, yeah, it's just not gonna happen. And, it is going to happen, but it wasn't a very decisive victory, I'd say. Oh, yeah. I knew what I was doing. Well, I knew what I was doing, but eventually I was just trying to do everything, like, barely scraping by, to get all of the prisoners necessary, and I actually managed it barely, as you can see. Although you can't see, unfortunately, because the game doesn't count. I probably could have... I wonder if there is a panel because there is a panel in replay feature of the game. You can actually switch the unit statistics panel on, right, the one on the right. But I don't remember if you can switch the objective panel on, because it actually would have been helpful for these kinds of objectives, like not having to sustaining too many losses, not capturing all of the prisoners, etc. And yeah, I didn't do it. Like, might try to do it in the future. Obviously not for Barbarossa, because this is there are, like, apart from Ukraine, there are just 2 missions left for me to cover. So I've covered all of the missions but 2, not including Ukraine. So there's just at this point. So there's just Dnieper crossings, which I really wanted to go after Ukraine, just to show you the consequences of my rather sloppy play in Ukraine, because it goes right after it. It's pretty much the same units, but fewer of those. And what was I? Oh, right. And another mission is Dvinazimyansk, which is a rather difficult mission, but for all of the different reasons. So, and we'll see how it goes. And at this point, I'm really gathering all of my prisoners. It's really just do as much combat as I can and grab all of those stragglers as I can. And I think I think you've seen enough. I think there's not much, a lot more to show you. I'll just be desperately attacking the enemy and losing troops and hoping all of these Soviet divisions just spit those prisoners out, and they actually obstinately don't, unfortunately. There is always a chance of them spitting stragglers out, but like it's not 100%. Obviously, it would be terrible if it were. Yeah, so that's pretty much the mission of Ukraine. Actually, the biggest video of this entire series, I know, because like neither Dnieper crossings nor Dvinazimyansk are long, particularly difficult or massive, but this is huge and massive, and it has been over 40 minutes, so I'm kind of tired. Thank you for listening and watching, and I'm guessing I'll meet you tomorrow to face the consequences.